without further ado, I've got this great presentation prepared for how you can kind of prepare for your first job in the tech field. And we'll kind of walk through what enterprise computing is, why you should care, IBM Z, all that good stuff. So let's dive in. Enterprise computing is truly where it's at. That's not just something that is fun to show up here on this slide, but it's the truth. We've seen a ton of jobs opening in the enterprise computing field, and I think that we can kind of project that that job market is really just going to expand. And if you are skilled in the right areas, finding a job in this field should not be too difficult, and it should come with a great amount of job security. But we will dive in there too. That's me with a typo in my name. Love seeing that up there. So has anyone ever heard of IBM Z? I know we have like a little bit of a 15-second delay, so we might not be able to see these up front in the chat, but if you are here, you have likely heard about IBM Z. But have you ever used IBM Z? Have you experienced the processing power, the transactional power? Maybe. I mean, have you or your parents ever used an ATM card or made a transaction? I mean, of course you have. Have you ever shopped in a retail store? Likely. Have you ever stayed in a hotel? Potentially, probably. I have. Flown on an airplane? Not too much recently, but hoping to again soon fly the friendly skies. So if you answered yes to any of these questions, then you have used an IBM Z processor. Because IBM Z processors are what is powering the world's leading businesses. So that's 23 of the 25 biggest US retailers are using IBM Z processors for those transactions. 92 of the top 100 banks in the entire world are using these processors. 23 of the 25 largest airlines in the world, and 10 of the 10 largest insurers in the world are all using IBM Z processors to manage the transactions in the background in a blink of an eye that you don't even see. So now you know. Yes, you have. Nancy, have you used an IBM Z processor?
Probably many times a day.
Many times a day, exactly. Michael? Experience?
As many as Nancy, if not more. Who knows? When Nancy and I both like to travel when traveling permits. So just even on that, you know, an airplane perhaps, or a hotel, let alone anything else, any kind of shopping. So once or twice, or maybe a million times.
Exactly. So these things are happening right under our noses, and we don't even know about it. But now we do. So just to kind of give you this picture, every second on the internet, 6,000 tweets are fired out, 18,000 swipes on Tinder. I don't know, Michael, Nancy, it's never too late to get on Tinder and do some swiping.
I think I'm off that market. I think Michael is too. So
yeah, I think my wife might.
Yeah. And his beautiful little baby. So
okay, yeah, then let's definitely stay away from Tinder, and we'll leave those swiping to the audience here.
Have fun if you enjoy that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. There we go. We see 20,000 Snapchats sent and 63,000 Google searches. I know that like half of those might be me just Googling random stuff. I love learning fun facts. I've been on an animal video kick. I learned a ton about cephalopods the other day.
Well, when I was younger, you know, we would have these conversations. We'd be out with our friends, and we would say, who knew trivia things? Like, you know, and we question each other, and you didn't know if someone was right. Now, nobody has to be wrong. Everyone just picks up their phone and figures it out. So say, oh, who is that drummer for?
Yeah, exactly.
There it is. So
yeah, you got the whole world at your fingertips.
Yeah, Dead or Alive is not such a big game anymore because you can just Google it right away.
Right. So that's all just what happens in 1 second. But at the same time, in that 1 second where there are 63,000 Google searches, 20,000 Snapchats, etc., 1.2 million transactions are happening on IBM Z networks. which is like mind-boggling. Like you see those diagrams of like 1,000 to a million to a billion, and it just scales so astronomically. That's what we're seeing. So that's just 1.2 million in a second. Like I'm not the math expert in this room, but someone smarter than me can figure out how many transactions that is in a day, and that's just pretty mind-blowing. So the other awesome thing about the IBM Z mainframes is that it is open, on, and secure. And by open, we mean that it is fully open source. So IBM kind of as a whole has this awesome dedication to open source technologies, and we have a great relationship with the Linux Foundation, and you can actually run Linux 1 on the IBM Z mainframe, which is awesome because we love being able to provide technology for free to people who can do cool stuff with it, like you all. And if you are interested in this, when we get to the IBM Z Student Hub, I'll kind of click through and how you can also join the Linux 1 on IBM Z community with a simple click, so you can get plugged into that network as well and kind of get working on all that amazing stuff. Nancy and Michael, do you all have any experience with open source?
I do indeed. You know, as a developer, I you know, certainly respect and where possible, use open source resources. When I develop, I try to, as often as possible, be open source. So, yes, short answer.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I love open source. I think it's a great thing, and it's great for kind of the long-lasting nature of tech, for it to truly be accessible by everyone. Everything, as much as possible, I should say, needs to be open source. So we are proud to offer that with the IBM Z. It is always on, so I'm gonna have to count the 9s on my screen here. It is 99.999% on, which is just about all the time, making sure that those transactions do not fail.
Well, I know when I'm stopping, I want to make sure it goes through. So thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which will be awesome because we'll show you in the Hour of Z game just how reliable this whole process is. And the last piece of there is security. I'm a huge proponent of data security. It is important to have a clear understanding of what your data does for you and what other people can do with your data, and what can happen if your data falls into the wrong hands. But that is not something that you have to worry about when making transactions that go through IBM Z processors, because it is the most secure server in the world. But what we're going to do here is we're going to take a little time out from this presentation. We'll jump back in for the rest of it. We are thrilled to introduce our colleague, Nick, here.
Hello.
Nick is a student member of IEEE-HKN, and a little bit later on, we'll kind of get more into the weeds with what that means and what he does. But Nick, before we do that, and before we dive back into the presentation, just want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Sorry I'm a little late. I'm a computer engineer major, graduate student from Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, Nick. Well, welcome. Well, before you joined us here, we kind of got into a little bit of our backgrounds, and I'd love to provide that to our audience for you as well, just kind of getting a bigger picture into maybe why you got into computer engineering, any other fields of study that might interest you that kind of bring in like an interdisciplinary nature or something of the sort.
Yeah, definitely. I studied music before I got into computer engineering. So I have my associates in fine arts. Something I always thought was fascinating was how you can take music from an electrical signal standpoint and kind of use that as input into a computer system and kind of change from analog to digital and be able to manipulate it in that way. That's something that's fascinated me and kind of drove a lot of my my elective courses choices. But I'm always fascinated by computer systems and how things work on their lowest levels. That's kind of, yeah, what drives me.
Super cool. Well, I hope that you and anyone else who shares a passion for music and computer engineering joins our session tomorrow with the producer Timbaland, who will be talking about how he's actually launching a new startup with our Hyperprotect Accelerator and leveraging IBM Z technology in a pretty innovative way.
Wow.
His startup's called Beat Lab. And so our chief penguin, Melissa Sassi, will be sitting down with him, and they're going to have a really cool conversation. I'm personally excited for that.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
So we'll see that later. So without further ado, let's kind of dive back into enterprise computing. And we're almost done here, so we'll be able to hear more about IEEE and what Nancy, Michael, and Nick get up to over there. But let's talk about these opportunities that you can work on with the IBM Z processors. So it's not just all COBOL and transactional work, because the hybrid cloud actually runs on the IBM Z processors. You can be in data analytics or artificial intelligence and leverage the power of IBM Z processors. IoT and kind of confidential computing, really that emphasis on security, is also present in the work that we do on our IBM Z mainframes. And kind of really big in the public zeitgeist right now with blockchain technology, with what we're seeing with cryptocurrencies and all the decentralized markets coming out. Blockchain does run on these IBM Z processors as well, kind of adding to that inherent security that's present in blockchain technology. So what you might be focused on right now in a different area of computer science or computer engineering is still relevant in the IBM Z space. So why would you kind of want to focus on creating a career in this field? Well, first, salary. Not the most important to everyone, but certainly slightly important to most people. Enterprise computing jobs have very competitive salaries. And like what I said earlier, and is highlighted over here on the fifth diamond, these are highly, highly in-demand skills that will lead to high salaries and high job security. We read a study recently that at the end of 2019, there were 62,000 open jobs in enterprise computing. And the data is a little bit skewed in the last couple of years, as we all know, with jobs and whatnot. But we kind of are seeing this rise and this trend for more jobs in enterprise computing. So there's never a better time than the present to kind of scale up around this, especially if you're a student and you're interested in pursuing a job soon. Work-life balance, huge, something we really value here at IBM. But you kind of get that in enterprise computing as well, as you kind of work these defined hours and are kind of focused around what you do in the field. You do have an ability to make a social impact with enterprise computing. Like I said, with our emphasis on open source technologies, that is crucial. And another kind of awesome thing about enterprise computing that's kind of always front of mind, always a big focus, is trying to reduce that energy output of the machines. And that's something that you can focus on in this field as well. It is also cutting edge technology. I don't know, mainframe somehow got this rep that it might be a little old school, but as we've seen, everything is currently running on mainframe computers, and most of these are enterprise or are IBM Z machines. So this is still cutting edge technology. It's innovating every year. We're constantly working on the next iteration to make these transactions faster, somehow more secure. I don't know how they make it any more secure than it already is. Like I said, they're already on 99.99999% of the time, but they'll throw another 9 on there if they can. And that's something that you can work on too in this field. So this is an invitation to all of you out there to join our student hub. We'll walk you through signing up in a little bit here. We always love to show off our Z ambassador and our youngest IBM Z champion, Lela Haloum, who you can hear from later on today, as she kind of talks about her experience as well. But we invite you to join the Student Hub so that you can learn more about this field, more about enterprise computing and what you can do with Z and how you can get involved today. So Mika Teiko is another one of our Z ambassadors. You can actually hear from her tomorrow if you're interested. We got a ton of shout outs from our Z ambassadors here. You can learn more about the Z ambassador program this evening or tomorrow morning if that's better for you based on timelines. But here are just some other perks of joining our IBM Z Student Hub is you can score swag, you can build those skills, you can get showcased, you can network with professionals, experts, peers in the field, and you can really start building that eminence. So there's another call to action to join us. I will paste the link in our chat here as well so you could start checking it out, but we'll also spend some time walking through this as well. So that is it for me. If there were any questions throughout that presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat and I will happily address them as we have time to.